Hello, data and analytics enthusiast. I'm Evan Wimpy, and it's time for your weekly update. Today is Tuesday, July 9th, 2024. Here's the latest and greatest in data and analytics. First up, Google has released their environmental report for 2024, and there's some mixed news. Google has set really impressive goals for themselves by the end of the decade to have net zero carbon emission, and they're just a little bit off track because so far in the first 3 years of the decade, they've actually increased their carbon emissions by 50%. So it's a little bit difficult to track to extrapolate what that looks like in 2030. I've created this graph here, and we can see they're not quite on track. A lot of the blame in the report goes to AI and the large amount of energy required to train these AI models and run these AI models. And this graph can serve also as Exhibit A because I've used generative AI to help me write the code to make this graph. Sorry, Google, but good luck. Next up, OpenAI has released a new GPT called CriticGPT. There's a lot of complaints about ChatGPT hallucinating, giving incorrect answers, false answers. So they've created a new AI, CriticGPT, which doesn't create anything new on its own. All it does is judge other AIs and try to tell them if what they're doing makes sense, if it's correct. It's really just a critic. It doesn't create anything new on its own. They could have called it My Wife GPT. Up next, in what I hope is an isolated incident, we've got the first case of an AI robot committing suicide. This was a robot that worked in a South Korean city council, it did mostly administrative tasks, ran documents back and forth across the building. The building was multiple stories, and allegedly, the robot threw itself down the stairs and now is totally inoperable. And of course, journalists have run with this relatively benign story with calling it suicide. The robot committed suicide. Although the claim seemed to be substantiated when they found the robot's suicide note. Apparently, it felt too terrible after the release of Critic GPT kept criticizing its document deliveries. And last story for today, Meta has released a new 3D generation tool. Now, it doesn't actually generate in 3D, it just generates digital representations of 3D objects. A lot more complicated than your 2D images or video, or your one-dimensional text. One-dimensional. Um, this meant to save a lot of time. There are tools out there that do it now, but Meta has this new way to do it, and it speeds things up 10x according to their report here. They were very excited to show investors this new 3D generation capability, and investors' response was lukewarm at best. He said, Meta, stop trying to make the metaverse happen. It's not going to happen. That's it for your weekly update. Today's Tuesday, July 9th, 2024, and I will see you next week if I don't get replaced by AI.